I paid $180,000 on March 14, 2019. I remember the date because it was raining. Thin, stubborn spring rain that made the parking lot of First National Bank shine like polished tin. I stood at the teller's window with a cashier's check in my hand and felt something close to pride. Not joy. Joy is for children and lottery winners. Pride is quieter, heavier. The check was the down payment for my son's dream house. "Are you sure you want it wired today, Mr. Halpern?" the bank manager asked me. She was young enough to be my granddaughter. Her nails were the color of apricots. "I've never been more sure," I said. That was not entirely true. The house on Alderbrook Lane cost $842,000. 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, a kitchen with quartz countertops and a sub-zero refrigerator that hummed like a contented animal. The backyard had a maple tree older than I was, and a deck wide enough to host 20 people for Thanksgiving. Daniel, my only son, had walked through it with the wide eyes of a boy in a toy store. "Dad," he said that day, running his palm along the kitchen island. This is it. This is where Lily will grow up." Lily was 3 at the time. She had a habit of dragging her stuffed rabbit by one ear. I would have bought her a castle if she had asked, but castles come with taxes and mortgages. Daniel and his wife, Claire, had $62,000 in savings. Not bad for two 35-year-olds with decent jobs. Daniel in tech sales, Claire in marketing. But not enough for 20% down in a market where houses sold above asking within days. "I can help," I heard myself say. Claire's eyes flickered first, surprise, then relief, then something more calculating. It lasted a second. "I may be old, but I am not blind." "We pay you back," Daniel added quickly. "Of course. It would just help us get in." I had $1.3 million sitting across 3 accounts, the result of 42 years as a civil engineer and one very disciplined wife who died too early of ovarian cancer. Miriam used to say, "Money is quiet security. Don't let it turn into loud foolishness." I suppose this was my first loud decision without her. The arrangement was simple. I would provide the $180,000 down payment and co-sign the mortgage to secure a 3.4% rate. The deed, at my attorney's suggestion, would remain solely in my name until things stabilize. Daniel had laughed at that. "Dad, you act like we're strangers." "It's paperwork," I said. "Paper protects people." He hugged me then, hard, genuine. I felt his stubble against my cheek. For a moment, I believed I had done something noble. The closing costs were another $27,460. Inspection repairs, $8,200 for the roof flashing and electrical panel. Within 3 months, Claire decided the kitchen backsplash was visually dated. That was $22,000 in custom tile imported from Spain. "Dad, you have such good taste," she told me, as if flattery were a form of repayment. I paid it. Wire transfer. June 11th, 2019. I began covering the mortgage payments as well for $1,218 each month because Daniel's commission structure was in transition, and Claire had taken unpaid maternity leave for their second child, who arrived the following February. "It's temporary," Daniel said. Temporary is a dangerous word. It stretches. By December 2020, I had paid $180,000 down, $27,460 closing, $22,000 kitchen, $14,800 landscaping, and roughly $84,000 in mortgage installments. Over $328,000. I moved into the guest suite for a few months after selling my own townhouse for $410,000. The market was good. Daniel insisted. "It doesn't make sense for you to rattle around alone, Dad. Be with family." The guest suite had beige walls and a bathroom with a sliding glass door that never quite closed properly. I brought my leather armchair, Miriam's mahogany dresser, and a box of photographs I rarely opened. The first few months were almost pleasant. I made Lily pancakes shaped like rabbits. I installed dimmer switches in the dining room. I showed Daniel how to fix the sprinkler system instead of calling a $200 service. Claire would pour herself a glass of Sauvignon Blanc at 6:30 p.m. sharp and talk about brand positioning while scrolling through her phone. "You know, Harold," she said once, "most people your age would be in Florida by now." "I prefer seasons," I replied. She smiled. It did not reach her eyes. The shift was gradual, like a thermostat adjusted 1 degree at a time. Conversations would stop when I entered the kitchen. Claire began referring to the house as our place in a tone that excluded me, though my name sat alone on the deed in the safe deposit box at First National. One evening, October 7, 2021, around 9:40 p.m., I walked past the study and heard Claire's voice through the cracked door. If we refinance once it's fully in our name, we could pull at least $200,000 in equity. His credit is tying things up. A pause. I know, but he won't live forever, Dan. Silence. Then Daniel quieter. Just give time. I stood in the hallway holding a glass of water, listening to the hum of the Sub-Zero refrigerator I had paid for. He won't live forever. It was not said with malice. It was said with arithmetic. I went back to my beige room and sat in Miriam's old armchair. The house was warm, 72 degrees, programmable thermostat, but I felt cold in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. Paper protects people. I began, for the first time, to wonder whom the paper was protecting. If you believe older voices still matter, support this channel with a like and a subscription. The first time Daniel called the mortgage payment ours, I corrected him gently. It's in my name, I said, looking up from the dining table where I kept a small black ledger. I still prefer writing numbers by hand before confirming them online. Old habits, they force you to look at the damage. He was standing by the refrigerator, eating Greek yogurt straight from the container. Technically sure, he said, but it's our home, Dad. Our. The word had weight now. On January 3, 2022, at exactly 8:12 a.m., I initiated the usual transfer for $1,218.37 to Wells Fargo Mortgage Services. Property taxes were due that quarter, $3,946.12, and the homeowner's insurance renewal had arrived in Claire's email, though she forwarded it to me without comment. Subject line, FYI. I pay that too. $2,380 for the year. By the end of that winter, my spreadsheet, yes, I eventually migrated from the ledger to Excel. I am not entirely fossilized, showed total contributions of $412,760.49. I kept the cents. Cents matter. They prove attention. Meanwhile, Daniel upgraded his car. A metallic gray Audi Q7 appeared in the driveway in March, replacing his sensible Toyota. I ran my fingers along the smooth one afternoon while he unloaded groceries. Lease, he said quickly. It's a write-off. For what? I asked. For image. Clients expect a certain presence. I nodded. Image is expensive. Claire redid the powder room in April. It photographs better for social, she explained. Another $9,600. I was not asked to fund it, but I noticed that the joint household account, which I had seeded with $50,000 for flexibility, dipped lower each month, while Daniel's direct contributions seemed to shrink. I said nothing. I watched. The real shift came in June 2022. I was in the backyard with Lily, now 6, helping her plant basil in terracotta pots. The soil smelled damp and clean. Claire's voice floated through the open kitchen window. It just doesn't make sense tax-wise, Mark, she was saying. If the title were transferred, we could refinance at 4.9% and pull equity before rates climb higher. A man's voice answered, tinny professional. Likely a mortgage broker. But currently it's solely in his name? Yes. And is he agreeable to transferring? A pause. He's sentimental, Claire said. He thinks paper equals control. I brushed dirt from my palms and felt something inside me tighten. Not anger. Recognition. That evening, Daniel knocked on my bedroom door at 10:15 p.m. He still knocked. I appreciated that. Dad, can we talk? He sat at the foot of my bed, hands clasped. He had inherited Miriam's dark eyes. When he was nervous, he blinked more often. We've been thinking, he began. Long-term planning. It would make sense to transfer the deed fully to Claire and me for stability. Stability? I repeated. Yeah. I mean, you trust us, right? Trust is a strange currency. It depreciates faster than money. The current arrangement protects everyone, I said. If something happens, divorce, lawsuit, bankruptcy, the house remains insulated. Daniel flinched at the word divorce. That's extreme. So is losing a house. He stood up, pacing once across the room. It just feels like you don't see this as ours, like we're renting. The word hung between us. renting. For a moment I almost laughed. Instead, I reached for the folder in my nightstand and handed him a printed sheet. It listed every transfer I had made since 2019. Dates, amounts, notes. His eyes moved down the page. "Dad, why are you keeping score?" "Because banks do," I replied. Silence. "You think we're using you?" he said finally. I studied his face. He looked tired, thinner than before. Ambition does that to a man. I think," I said slowly, "that gratitude fades when comfort becomes routine." He left without slamming the door. I appreciated that too. In August, something small but telling occurred. The Wi-Fi password changed. I discovered it when my tablet refused to connect during breakfast. Claire was slicing avocado. "Oh, we updated it," she said lightly. "Security." "And the new password?" She hesitated a fraction too long. "I'll text it to you." She did not. Daniel gave it to me later that evening, awkwardly, as if handing over a spare key to a stranger. By September, the conversations were no longer subtle. At a Sunday dinner, roast chicken, rosemary potatoes, Claire's favorite Pinot Noir, her father, Richard, joined us. He is a retired dentist with opinions on everything from interest rates to lawn maintenance. "So, Harold," he said, carving into his chicken breast, "when are you planning to simplify your estate? It's messy leaving major assets unresolved." "The deed is quite resolved," I answered. Richard smiled, thin and white. "For now." Claire laughed softly. Daniel stared at his plate. I felt it, then not exclusion, not yet, but alignment. They were aligning. After dinner, while loading the dishwasher, I heard Claire whisper, "We can't build real equity until it's ours." Real equity. As if the $428,000 I had poured into brick and glass were imaginary. That night, I opened my safe deposit box at First National. The metal drawer slid out with a dry scrape. Inside lay the deed, crisp and indifferent. My name alone in bold type. Owner. I held it for a long moment. Paper protects people, but it also reveals them. When I returned home, the house was dark except for the kitchen pendant lights. Daniel was at the counter, laptop open, spreadsheets glowing on the screen. He looked up. "Dad, we need to decide soon," he said. "Rates are climbing. If we wait, we lose leverage." Leverage? I set my keys down carefully. "Daniel," I said, my voice steady in a way that surprised even me, "you're speaking like a man negotiating with a bank. Aren't you acting like one?" The question landed harder than he intended. For the first time, I saw it clearly. In their version of the story, I was not a father who helped. I was a temporary obstacle between them and ownership, and obstacles eventually are removed. The email arrived at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. I know the exact time because I was awake, as I usually am before the rest of the house began its mechanical symphony. Coffee grinder at 7:05, shower at 7:12, garage door at 7:40. Claire had asked me the night before to quickly print something from her laptop. A boarding pass for a marketing conference in San Diego. She left the computer open on the kitchen counter. Screen dimmed, but not locked. I do not snoop. At 71, I have learned that dignity often lies in looking away. But when I touched the trackpad to wake the screen, the inbox refreshed. And there it was. Subject, Alderbrook, pre-listing strategy call. From Mark.Reynolds@premierrealtygroup.com to Claire.Bennett at CC. Daniel.Bennett at. My finger froze. I read it once, then again. Based on current comps, we estimate a conservative listing price of $1.38 million to $1.45 million. With minor staging and updated exterior photos, we could push toward $1.5 million. Recommend timing late spring for optimal buyer traffic. Let's discuss title logistics and occupancy details before proceeding. Title logistics, occupancy details. I felt my pulse in my throat. Below Mark's message was Claire's reply from 11:22 p.m., sent the previous night while I sat 10 feet away watching a documentary about Arctic expeditions. Thanks, Mark. The title is currently in my father-in-law's name for historical reasons, but we're working on transitioning it. He lives in the guest suite, but we expect that situation to change within the next 60 to 90 days. Daniel and I will coordinate with you privately. We expect that situation to change. The kitchen was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. The same refrigerator I had paid for on June 11, 2019. I printed the boarding pass. I did not close the email window. Instead, I opened the attachment Mark had included. A comparative market analysis. My house, no their house. Rendered in flattering angles, bathed in golden hour light. Estimated seller proceeds after fees at $1.45 million. Approximately $1,356,000. I did quick arithmetic in my head. Outstanding mortgage balance, $612,000. Net after payoff, roughly $744,000. Their equity, their leverage, their future. And occupancy details. At 7:05, the grinder roared to life. Claire walked in wearing silk pajamas and stopped when she saw me at the counter. "Oh," she said, a flash of something sharp crossing her face. "You're up early." "I printed your boarding pass," I replied evenly. "It's by the toaster." She stepped closer, glancing at the laptop screen. Her hand moved quickly, too quickly, to close the lid. "You didn't." I saw the email. There are moments when the air changes density. This was one of them. Claire straightened her shoulders. "Well," she said carefully, "we were going to talk to you." "When?" She hesitated. "Soon." Daniel entered then. Ty half nodded, still damp from the shower. "What's going on?" She saw the email, Claire said. He looked at me, then at the closed laptop, then back at me. Silence. "Is it true?" I asked. My voice sounded older than I felt. "You're planning to list the house." Daniel exhaled slowly. "We were exploring options. For property you do not legally own." "Dad." "No," I said quietly. "Answer the question." He ran a hand through his hair. "Yes, we talked to a realtor." "For how long?" "Since January." "January." "For months of dinners. For months of Lily asking me to read her Charlotte's Web at bedtime. For months of quiet calculation." Claire's tone hardened. "Harold, this isn't personal. The market is hot. We have an opportunity to build real wealth. We can't do that if the asset isn't structured correctly. Asset, not home, not family house. Asset. And my occupancy details?" I asked. Daniel flinched. "We were going to help you find something comfortable," he said quickly. "A condo, maybe near the lake. You said you like water." "With whose money?" He did not answer. Claire did. "With proceeds from a sale." "Of course." I let that sit. "You plan to sell a house titled in my name," I said slowly. "Calculate proceeds, and then allocate a portion to relocate me." "That's not fair," Daniel snapped. "You've been holding this over us for 3 years." Holding, as if $428,000 were a threat instead of a gift. By evening, the tension had spread through the house like smoke. At dinner, take out sushi because no one felt like cooking. The silence was brittle. Lily chattered about a spelling test. Her younger brother, Owen, banged his fork against his plate. Halfway through the meal, Richard called on speakerphone. I recognized his voice immediately. "Did you tell him?" he asked. Claire hesitated, then said, "Yes." "Well," Richard continued, unfazed by my presence at the table, "it's cleaner to move forward decisively. Delays only complicate title transitions." "I'm still here," I said. A pause. "Of course you are, Harold," Richard replied smoothly. "We're simply discussing prudent financial planning." Prudent. Daniel stood abruptly. "Can we not do this now?" "No," I said. "Let's do it now." I placed my napkin beside my plate with deliberate care. "You will not list this house," I said, looking first at Daniel, then at Claire. "Not without my consent, and I do not give it." Claire's jaw tightened. "You can't just block our future." "I am not blocking your future," I replied. "I am protecting my present." Daniel's voice rose. "So what, we're just stuck? Forever renters in our own home?" There it was again. Renters. The word no longer offended me. It clarified. "You forgot something," I said quietly. "What?" Claire demanded. I stood. "The landlord." The room went still, and for the first time since March 14, 2019, I felt something unfamiliar but steady settle into my chest. Not pride, not anger, control. I did not shout. I did not threaten. And my volume is wasted energy. Instead, the next morning at 9:30 a.m., I drove to the office of Jonathan Pierce, ESQ, whose brass nameplate I had passed 100 times but never needed. His office smelled faintly of lemon polish and old paper. Diplomas lined the wall like framed warnings. "Mr. Halpern," he said, adjusting his glasses as I laid the folder on his desk. "What can I help you with?" "I'd like to discuss reclaiming clarity," I replied. He read through the deed, the mortgage documents, the transfer history I had printed, every wire, every check, every quarterly tax payment. I had highlighted totals in neat yellow bands. "Total contributions to date?" he asked. $428,760.49, I answered. He gave a low whistle. "And the property is solely titled to you?" "Yes." "And they are not paying rent?" "No." He leaned back. "Then legally, Mr. Halpern, they are occupants at will. You have options." Options. The word felt like oxygen. By noon, we had drafted 3 documents. 1. A formal notice of revocation of financial support, effective immediately. No further mortgage, tax, or insurance payments would be made on their behalf. 2. A 30-day notice to vacate, citing sole ownership and termination of permissive occupancy. 3. A demand for accounting, requesting documentation of all expenditures made from the $50,000 household account I had seeded. Jonathan looked at me over the rim of his glasses. "Are you certain you want to escalate?" "I am certain," I said. They already did. At 3:14 p.m., I walked into Wells Fargo and removed automatic payments from my checking account. The next mortgage installment due on the 1st would not be covered by me. The teller, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, confirmed the cancellation. "Anything else today, sir?" "Yes," I said. "Close the joint household account." The balance was $11,482.22. I transferred it back into my personal account. When I returned home, Daniel's Audi was already in the driveway, Claire's BMW beside it. The house looked unchanged, manicured lawn, clean siding. The maple tree casting its familiar afternoon shadow across the deck. Inside, the air felt charged. "I got an alert," Daniel said immediately. "The joint account has been closed," I finished. Claire stood by the island, arms crossed. "What are you doing?" she demanded. I placed 3 sealed envelopes on the quartz countertop. Cream paper. My name typed cleanly in the upper corner. "I'm clarifying boundaries." Daniel picked up the first envelope, tore it open. His eyes scanned the letter. His face drained of color. "You're cutting us off?" "I am ceasing voluntary payments," I corrected. Claire grabbed the second envelope. 30 days, she said sharply. "You can't be serious." "I am." "You'd evict your own grandchildren?" The word evict hung heavy and theatrical. "I am not evicting children," I said evenly. "I am terminating an arrangement that has been abused." Daniel slammed his palm against the counter. "This is insane. Over 1 email?" "No," I replied. "Over 4 years." Silence followed. Thick. Electric. Claire's voice dropped lower, more dangerous. "You think you can scare us? We've built equity here." "In a property you do not own," I said. Daniel's breathing grew uneven. "You destroy our credit? I will not subsidize it." For a moment, I thought he might shout again. Instead, he laughed, a brittle, disbelieving sound. "You're proving exactly what we thought." "And what is that?" "That you never saw this as our home." I met his eyes. "I saw it as a gift. You saw it as an acquisition." Claire unfolded the 3rd document. "What's this?" she asked. "A demand for financial accounting," I said. "Of the $50,000 fund." Her cheeks flushed. "That was household money." "Then it will be easy to document." The front doorbell rang. We all froze. When Daniel opened it, a uniformed process server stood on the porch holding another envelope. "Daniel Bennett?" he asked. Daniel swallowed. "Yes. You've been served." The papers were identical to the ones on the counter. Formal copies. Legally stamped. Neighbors' curtains shifted subtly across the street. Suburban curiosity is a powerful force. Daniel closed the door slowly. Claire's composure cracked first. "This is humiliating." "No," I said quietly. "Humiliating is being discussed as an occupancy detail." Her lips parted, but no sound came. Daniel looked at me differently then. Not as a father. Not as an obstacle. As a legal opponent. "You're going to regret this," he said. "Possibly," I replied. but not financially. That night, the house was divided into territories. They spoke in the study behind closed doors. I heard fragments. Refinance, emergency loan, bridge financing. Richard can help. I sat in my beige room and reviewed my accounts. After closing the townhouse sale, investments, and conservative bonds, my net liquid assets still stood at $1.12 million. I was not afraid. At 11:08 p.m., Daniel knocked on my door. "Dad," he said quietly, "please, let's not do this through lawyers. We already are. Just give us the deed." "No." He stared at me for a long moment. "You'd rather sell the house out from under us?" I considered that. "Yes," I said calmly, "if necessary." He left without another word. For the first time in years, I slept deeply. Because paper protects people. And now finally it was protecting me. The mortgage payment was due on October 1st. On October 3rd, Daniel received the first late notice. He tried to hide it. But banks do not whisper. They send emails, text alerts, automated calls at 8:03 a.m. sharp. I was in the kitchen when his phone buzzed across the countertop. Wells Fargo. Payment past due, action required. He turned the screen face down. "Temporary glitch," he muttered. I poured myself coffee. Black. No sugar. By October 10th, the second notice arrived. Certified mail. Claire signed for it. Her signature trembled slightly. I noticed because I was standing in the foyer, watching through the beveled glass. That evening, they came to my room together. Not angry this time. Desperate. "Dad," Daniel began, sitting in the same chair he had used the night he asked for the deed. "We can't cover $4,218 a month. Not right now. My commissions are volatile," I finished. Claire clasped her hands together. "If you just reinstate the autopay, we'll figure everything out. We're meeting with a lender next week." "A lender for what?" I asked. "A bridge loan," she said. "Or maybe Richard can co-sign." "Richard, of course." "And what collateral will you offer?" I asked calmly. Daniel's jaw tightened. "The house." I let the silence stretch long enough for it to sting. "You do not own it," I said. Claire's composure cracked. "This is vindictive." "No," I replied. "This is arithmetic." On October 15th, Jonathan listed the property, not with Mark Reynolds, with his own brokerage contact, discreet, efficient, ruthless. Listing price, $1,475,000. Professional photos were taken on a Tuesday afternoon while Daniel and Claire were both at work. I insisted on that detail. The photographer moved through the house, adjusting light angles, fluffing pillows, capturing the quartz countertops in warm tones. "This place will move fast," he said casually. I nodded. It was never the house's fault. When the listing went live, Daniel stormed into my room, holding his phone. "You listed it?" he demanded. "Yes. You can't just—" "I can," I said quietly. "I am the sole owner." Claire followed, eyes blazing. "You're selling our children's home." "I'm liquidating an asset." The first open house was that Sunday. Strangers walked through the living room, where Lily had learned to read. Couples measured the dining area with discreet glances. A young woman ran her hand along the staircase railing and smiled at her husband. Daniel refused to leave during the showing. He stood in the backyard, arms crossed, as if guarding territory already lost. By Wednesday, we had 3 offers. One at $1.48 million. One at $1.5 million, contingent on minor inspection. And one cash at $1.52 million, 30-day close. I accepted the cash offer. Daniel found out from the notification email. "He didn't even discuss it with us," he said, voice hoarse. "There's nothing to discuss." Closing was scheduled for November 30th. In the weeks that followed, the house grew quieter. Boxes appeared in the hallway. Claire spent hours on the phone with her father. Daniel avoided looking at me altogether. One night, Lily knocked softly on my door. "Grandpa," she whispered, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Are we moving?" "Yes," I said gently. "Did we do something wrong?" The question cut deeper than any legal notice. "No," I told her. "Sometimes adults forget who built the house they're standing in." She did not understand. I was glad. On November 30th at 11:00 a.m., we sat in a sterile conference room at Pearson Associates. The buyer signed first. Then I did. Sale price: $1,520,000. After closing costs and mortgage payoff, the net wired into my account was $872,436.18. I had contributed $428,760.49. I had not lost a cent. Daniel and Claire received nothing. There was no equity distribution, no side agreement, no quiet reimbursement. They had invested comfort. I had invested capital. When the final document was notarized, Daniel looked at me across the table. "You've destroyed us," he said flatly. I studied his face, older now than I remembered, lined by stress he had not anticipated. "No," I said. "I corrected you." Outside, the maple tree on Alderbrook Lane stood bare against a gray sky as movers loaded the last of their furniture into a rented truck. Claire avoided my gaze entirely. Richard did not attend closing. I moved into a lakefront condominium 2 weeks later. 2 bedrooms, large windows, quiet, paid in full. On Christmas Eve, my phone rang. "Daniel." I let it ring once, twice, 3 times. Then I answered. "Dad," he said, voice lower than I had ever heard it. "We're in a rental. It's small." "I see. I didn't think you'd actually do it." "That," I said calmly, "was the mistake." Silence stretched across the line. "I guess we forgot," he murmured finally. "Yes," I replied. "You forgot who the landlord was." And I hung up before he could forget again.